Let me call my student and let's talk about a Novation deal that is falling apart. So anytime somebody comes to me and says, I'm having a problem with a Novation agreement, I already know they didn't pay attention, did something wrong with the paperwork, they didn't follow through and file a lien. And so I have a student right now DMing me and texting me and saying, hey, I need help. I'm in a Novation agreement nightmare. There's something going on with the agreement, or he lost control of the asset because I'm assuming this. I haven't talked to him yet. So let's give him a call. Let's see where this goes.
Hey, what's up, Ace?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Great to chat with you finally. Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
Of course, man. So tell me what's going on.
I went driving for dollars in June, found a vacant home, tracked down the seller who's 93 and lived with her her daughter. She's on a reverse mortgage for the last number of years, which I remember is a red flag, but more so like holding and long term. So she's like, I want nothing to do with the house, figure out something with it. I don't want anything for it. Just get it out of my life. So I pulled a payoff and it was $191. So initially we're like, let's just list it at a discount, which we did. We're going to go borrow $5,000 and paint it, clean it up a little bit, straight out of the 1970s, but it's very clean. The fix and flip bug bit me and I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to do the floors. I wanted to do a flip forever. I've never done one. And so we structured it as a novation where we'd close in a couple of months. I made some critical errors, should get karate chopped for. I should have known better. But when we borrowed this first round of money, my attorney at the title company who we've worked with was like, oh, you don't need to file these. If you guys are just going to be in and out, quick flip, no big deal. Like, just go do your thing. So I did not file any liens on the property, which I'm kicking myself for now, but here we are. So as we were in there, we're like, the ARV on this is like 280. We got an exact comp across the street. We have a pool. We can definitely get 280 for this. Let's borrow $30,000 and do a full rehab. So we spent the next 6 weeks ourselves in there doing all of it ourselves. And then we listed it on the market. And up until that point, through August and a part of September, it was smooth sailing. It was fun. I'm like, well, there's no way we can lose on this. And then it goes on the market and we find out that I knew the solar panels that were on would be an issue. Not a lot of people want those. So that held us up. Then the interest rate started kicking in. Then we got a hurricane headed for the house. And then there was some sinkhole activity from 2012. So it just kept us on the market a little bit longer. And about 2 weeks ago, we finally had a buyer. And their agent's like, what's up with this foreclosure? And I go into public records and find out that HUD and the reverse mortgage filed a notice of foreclosure at the end of August and foreclosed on the house 29 days later, literally while we were still in there rehabbing the house. It was under everybody's radar. We had clear title back in June, but nobody saw it. So the last 2 weeks, I've gone from HUD's attorney to the asset manager to Novad, the servicer, just like, please, will somebody fix this? I'll buy the house back at the payoff. I'll, try to make you whole. And I've gotten absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, so before I called you, I was basically telling my team, I already know what he did wrong. I'm 100% sure he didn't follow instructions on paperwork. He didn't file the liens against the property to protect himself, his investors, and his future profit, right? One of the things I teach in Novations is when you buy the property and you go borrow money from a private money lender, which sounds like you borrowed around $40,000?
Correct.
Okay, so you borrowed around $40,000. What I would have done is file the lien not only for the $40,000, but I would have filed the lien for another $40,000 to just guarantee that I was going to at least make 40 grand on the deal. Because the biggest problem with a Novation agreement is that at any point, especially with a reverse mortgage, which I tell you guys to stay away from, is that somebody's going to come along and take that property back from you, but they would have been forced to pay you off in a foreclosure situation if you guys had the liens against the property. But your attorney gave you the opposite advice of me, which I say always record your private money lender against the property to secure them and secure your own future profit against the property. Because here's the thing, is a lot of times, like, you have your seller, they could go out and get another line of credit. They could go out and do something, or maybe an IRS lien or something pops up later, but who cares as long as it's behind your liens, right? But your attorney gave you really, really bad advice, dude. Like that is the worst advice I've heard. He should have put a lien against the property. this is also why I argue with people when they're like, oh, my attorney's been doing this for a long time. I'm like, dude, I know more than 99% of attorneys. Please listen to me. My first thought is you have no way of getting this back. What I would do, bro, is I would take this as the greatest story of your life and tell this story to 1,000 people to avoid the money mistakes for them. And what I would do is say, how do I go get I would call my private money lenders and go, I lost your money. I'm going to go get 4 wholesale deals that make me $10,000 each. I'm going to get you paid back in the next 4 months.
I've already talked to my lenders. My seller died. You would have thought she was 40 talking to her in June. She's passed away.
See, that's the thing about reverse mortgages is that I tell people to stay away from them unless the seller is alive, is because the second the seller dies and there's a notice of death, right? Because they get this, the certificate of passing. Once that is made public, reverse mortgages, they are on top of it, bro. Is that when it got triggered? Was when she died?
No, actually not.
Interesting.
She died weeks after this, oh man, I'd say this will make the greatest Zoom. We had solar, sinkhole, it was in a trust, my seller died, and then we got foreclosed on. Like I have a lot to share with people on.
Here's what I would do. I'm gonna give you advice on how to make 50 grand out of this deal, okay? What I would do is I would sit down for an hour and like journal, right? Like, because when you tell a story and if it's not journaled and put together chronological, it's like, oh yeah, and I forgot to tell you this. Oh yeah, and this happened. Remove all the oh yeahs, okay? Write down journal, date, right? All the way through. Construct a story, and then you and I can do a Zoom for the whole Subto community of like, here's a novation agreement that went wrong and here's everything he did wrong. And then highlight you inside the community of somebody who can actually help out with deals and call sellers and all that kind of stuff. Bro, you'll get overwhelmed with JV opportunities. You'll go make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 with just students inside of Subto, that you'll make this money back and more just by going through the story and sharing it with everybody else. You'll make a bunch of money. You'll do a bunch of deals with people, and people will really respect the transparency, and it will help them know how to avoid this kind of stuff in the future. It sucks, right? It sucks really bad, somebody losing money like that on a deal, but it tells you right here, this is why I don't love novation agreements. What he did is he went to, like we did on Craigslist, right? He went to somebody that has a Toyota Tacoma, and he says, hey, I see you have your Toyota Tacoma just sitting there, not driving. It's collecting dust, I see it, whatever, and you want to sell it for $9,000. Cool. How about I give you $7,000 and I go find a buyer for $9,000. So David is thinking he's got a $2,000 profit, but just like he told you, he went and borrowed a little small chunk of money. This would be like him going, I got to clean it up and get new tires on it. So I'm going to take $500 out of my pocket to go clean up this $9,000 vehicle, essentially netting him $1,500. Does that make sense? So that is what his original thought was, okay? But then he got emotionally invested and he goes, I'm going to go borrow another 30 grand to take this thing to like the most expensive Toyota Tacoma on planet Earth. So instead of just doing like a smaller amount, he goes and it's like in the car world, it's like he goes, all right, I'm going to spend an extra $15,000 tricking this thing out, all new interior, subwoofer, new paint job, a lift. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go spend this for $30,000. He went and borrowed this money from somebody else and did not have an agreement with the seller or the actual owner of this that says that this money will come back to him. And so what happens is the seller ends up getting their vehicle, the Toyota Tacoma, taken away from them, because this whole time the Toyota Tacoma had payments that were racking up that my student didn't know about. And somebody came in and repossessed the Toyota Tacoma while he had already cleaned it up, spent the 15 grand, done all the things. And that's what happened. He lost all his money. He lost half a year of his life. Does this now make sense? Okay, so what he should have done is this money, okay, he should have done is he should have recorded this money against this truck. So when this company came in and repossessed it and took it, and they went and sold it on auction, he would have gotten paid because there would have been a lien recorded against the Toyota Tacoma. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So isn't it funny how whenever I tie it into vehicles, people are like, oh, I got it. Makes sense. If you have to do a novation agreement, do it. But what I would much rather do, okay, would be a partnership with the seller, okay, where I literally am in a partnership, or I would rather do an agreement for sale. Okay. By the way, what did I say? Reverse mortgage, always stay away from reverse mortgages, because that's what happened. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, came in with the reverse mortgage, foreclosed without them even knowing. He borrowed all this money from private money lenders, and what did he not do? He did not record the documents at the county recorder's office, because for you attorneys out there and you CPAs out there that think you know what you're doing, an attorney gave my student bad advice. An attorney, this is why I don't trust attorneys. An attorney gave my student bad advice that cost him $40,000 in half a year of his life. How dare you not give it, do not give advice based on things you don't know what you're talking about. So he did, what did I say at the very beginning? He didn't do the paperwork properly. This is the way I train it. He didn't put the agreements together, and he didn't go to the county recorder's office to record it. The reason he didn't do it is because he got bad advice from an attorney that was like, oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Do you know why that attorney gave him that advice? That attorney knows better, but they were lazy. They had already been paid on the transaction, and they were like, you'll be fine. That's what happened. That is why novation agreements suck, is because you have no control.